Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. Today I am on r/worldbuilding, once again visiting Reddit, because at the time of this video's production, which is early to mid July of 2025, I am in a somewhat of a creative slump, but I am looking to get out of it. And I think a good place to find inspiration for that is in this subreddit. Even though the reason for my creative slump and really the focus of my book isn't really on world building per se, but more on character stuff. But that's a secondary issue. This is still an interesting subreddit to explore, and I thought going into it might be a little bit interesting. And some of you might be thinking, well, no wonder you're in a creative slump. You're on Reddit. And to that I say, if anything, being on Reddit is a symptom of my slump, not the cause of it. And also, regardless, as I've said, there are some really good, really interesting stuff here, and I think it is worth delving into. Before I start doing that, however, it's time I look a little bit in this description box right here, the subreddit, and it starts with world building. Explore every impossibility. That's actually a good tagline. For artists, writers, game masters, musicians, programmers, philosophers, and scientists alike, the creation of new worlds and new universes has long been a key element of speculative fiction. True, from the fantasy works of Tolkien and Le Guin to the science fiction universes of Delaney and Asimov to the tabletop realm of Gygax and Barker and beyond. Gygax is not really the best reference you can include right now, but this subreddit was created in November 2009, so I'll let that slide. This subreddit is about sharing your worlds, discovering the creations of others, and discovering the many aspects of creating new universes. There's a community guide. There's some info on the, there's some info on the subreddit, etc., etc., and also some, related subs, moderators, the works. If you've been on Reddit, you know how it works. Anyway, enough with the externalia. It's time we delve into the. It's time I delved into the subreddit itself. Starting with user TrickyTour2917, whose whose profile photo is of a cat with it sticking its tongue out, in its map of my fictional world. A map that seems to have been drawn in a phytofax with a sharpie. Map of the Krylibian world, and there are a whole bunch of kingdoms around here, some of which are highlighted. And I have to say, I recognize some outlines, and by I recognize, I mean they seem familiar. Uh, I imagine these are I imagine this is what the world looks like, and maybe these countries are the places where where potentially POV characters exist, and where they uh, or where stuff happens. This could also potentially be doubled up by the fact that there are various places where you have where you have some other name with an arrow. That could be. However, I have no context on whether those are actual given names or stuff like city names. So yeah, a little bit interesting though. So yeah, go ahead, Tricky Tour. Let's see what else you got. Samsung ad, the Dragon of Ruin. Okay, this is actually a really interesting drawing. I will admit that much, from user Northweekend9214. Yeah. Okay. Next up, from user Headwind Studios, petrification from the use of magic. Uh, Petrification from the use of magic. I think that means let's look into it. Is there any description? No, there isn't. Oh, there's an OP here. Okay, crediting the artist. That's good. It is said that the power to fuel all magic flows from the gods as it purely saw, or I think it should be as if purely by their essence, that the reality of the world can be altered. To draw upon this power is to inhale this essence and initiate the slow, inexorable process of displacing one's own bodily reality. A caster's ultimate fate is tied to the forces they seek to control. become a sculptor of earth, and one will eventually vitrify. Control the currents of air, and slowly you will dissipate, finding equilibrium with the breath of the world. Okay, that's actually a very interesting concept. Like the idea that I don't know if you've heard that, but there's been a WhatsApp pop up. Anyway, moving ahead. The idea that magic itself would have something of a cost, or otherwise leave its mark on the wearer or on the caster, is not something that is not a particularly new idea. There are variants of that. There are variants of that throughout most magic systems. But the idea that you are in some sense marked or condemned, by your magic is somewhat interesting, or that you would be, that you would slowly meld with it until you become unrecognizable. Some cultures venerate these transformed men and women, their remains lining avenues. That's a lot of people. Or occupying places of prominence in parks, town squares, or places of learning. Material depending, additions may be made to these remnants, though whether they are still conscious and capable of feeling discomfort is a hotly debated topic in some circles. Okay, this topic turned from interesting to horrifying. Lovely. While most casters know their final fate when beginning their magical journey, some find themselves surprised, mostly those that dabble in experimental magics. I have heard tales of a woman transformed into a statue of cinnamon, only to be dispersed by an errant sneeze, and we don't speak of what happens to those who look to monk for strength, even just once. Okay, yeah, of course. This is this is again something that happens, that happens in other forms of fiction-based magic-based fiction. That the various forms of magic have have different effects. What's the lore behind the enshrined? Oh, and of course this guy has his own, or rather this person, Headwind Studios, has a subreddit where they talk about their world, or about their talk about their story. This is not something this is not something unheard of, and it is in fact something something I've encountered quite a few times. I have considered making a subreddit for my own series of stories, yet for some reason I can't imagine there might already be a subreddit called Heir to the Empire. And it is specifically because of the naming convention that or rather because of some other part, or because of a part of a larger franchise with that name already exists. I talked about that like 2 months ago, or about a franchise that I am about to, talk about in this in the near future, as of the time of the video's production. But you'll have the ability to look back on my videos from July 2025 and see what that is about. Anyway, what's the idea behind this world, or behind this story, Enshrined? The world of r/Enshrined takes place upon a mysterious island to which your vessel always seems to be drawn to. The reality of this world is ordained by the ever-shifting interactions between the fundamental shaping forces of the world, such as evolution, freedom, structure, hunger, and many more, and the mortals that have come to worship them as gods. Okay, so gods as personifications of concepts rather than mascots. Interesting idea. Moving ahead. The world of Enshrined is a harsh one where opposing ideologies are forced to share the land, curses outnumber blessings, and divine corruption permeates all. Divine corruption is such a perfect little statement, because you imagine the divine to be, to be tied to order, to cleanliness, to clarity, whereas corruption muddles everything. So the idea that something is that is imbued with clarity actually becomes muddled, or that some level of confusion or disarray comes from could come from clarity or be intrinsic to to an idea of clarity is is juicy. I'll give it that much. Anyway, moving ahead, we already saw the Dragon of Ruin. We already see that. Okay, astronomy on Titan. Okay, the moon from Earth for scale. Dione, Tethys, Janus and Ephemetus, Mimas, Hyperion, Saturn itself, Enceladus, Iapetus, Rhea. And yeah, at night, same bodies. Oh, actually a few more. No wait, Rhea's in a different place. Actually, a lot of these are in a different place. The size of Saturn in Titan's sky compared to the moon in Earth's sky. Okay, moving ahead. The apparent size of Saturn's rings and some of its moons as seen from Titan compared to the size of the moon from Earth. Their sizes vary a lot depending on where they are in their orbits. These are all at their closest to Titan. Okay, interesting. And yeah, the size of various things as seen through a telescope from both Earth and Titan. This is the view from Earth, and this is the view from Titan. Okay, interesting. Let's see if there's some lore or some context behind it. Some images I've made which give a picture of what the skies would look like on Titan. Made in Space Engine. An amazing piece of software. Yeah, funny. That all people leave even a mild interest in reality. Now that's a statement. I then manipulated the images with old reliable MS Paint. Not a great idea, but moving ahead. And okay, some descriptions. This fantastic view would of course have a strong influence over Titan's folklore. So whoever this user is, Luroka, imagines a civilization that would emerge on the Saturnian moon Titan. And this could be what their world is about. This fantastic view would of course have a strong influence over Titan's folklore. I've already made a kind of pantheon of Saturn's regular moons, which I'll share later. Iapetus is non-binary, and there is a lesbian polycule between 3 of the moons. Oh yeah, lovely. Seeing Saturn in the sky is important enough for people that basically no humans live on the side of Titan facing away from Saturn. Titan is tidally locked, same as the moon, hence why you only see one side of it. Meaning that one side of Titan always faces towards Saturn and the other faces away. This means that Saturn is only ever visible on one side. My voice has suddenly gone rough for some reason. Anyway, moving ahead. All humans on Titan. Oh, all humans. So I imagine this is Titan post-human colonization. And far enough in the future that they that they develop their their own cultures, their own pantheons. That would also require them to have a cultural level to where they to where they need to develop gods in order to make sense of the world, which is a take. I'll give it that much. Let's see. Moving ahead. Humans have where was it? All humans on Titan live on this side, the only exception being scientists and biologists studying life on the other side. Yeah, just like with natural reserves. The only people that go in protected sites are the people who are authorized to be there and the people who have a material interest from from being there, even if it is illegal. This is all part of my project set in the year 12,000, okay, where humans have terraformed both Mars and Titan and are debating whether they should attempt terraforming Venus as well. Really? Venus? There are a few places I could think of, even just within the solar system, that would make more sense to terraform and potentially colonize before you actually go to Venus. But whatever, you do you. Lastly, why would people draw Titan's view of Saturn wrong? You have probably seen images of what Titan would look like, where Saturn and especially its rings are greatly exaggerated. Why? This looks sick and it's real! It's what it would actually look like, and it's incredible. Why exaggerate? Yeah, okay, fair point. Fair point, Laroka. Now, moving ahead from Gus Bus Draws. A public infracore crew collecting some void crust. These are some very stereotypical looking aliens. And they are collecting it with what looks like... Okay, this guy seems to be cutting it up. And then this guy seems to be sucking it up in this huge, like, vacuum cleaner. That is a very, that is a very weird uh, system to put together, especially in the vacuum of space. Like seriously, how do you create enough of a pressure differential to make that kind of thing work? Or maybe this is just a collector nozzle, and I'm just saying I'm just saying it looks like a vacuum cleaner because that's what it looks like, but actually maybe it works on a somewhat different principle, meaning that this collector nozzle maybe is using some kind of other force to draw this to draw this material into the ship. Let's see what Gus Bus Draws has to say. Here's a world building vignette from the Galactic Transitway, project that I'm working on developing into a comic series. Okay, you do you. And there's a website too. Good to know. The Galactic Transitway is a region of space connected by a series of stabilized wormholes, opening up systems across the galaxy to communication and trade. Okay. And I assume these guys, or these figures, are here to make sure that the wormholes or the transit areas around these wormholes are cleared up. As in this thing they're catching is some kind of debris that is created because of this transit, and they're collecting it up. So so first of all to clear the transit area, and second of all to maybe do some kind of secondary work on this material. Let's see. Okay, stabilized wormholes. Portals and other infrastructure, including interstellar transit, is established and maintained by the Public Infrastructure Corps, or PIC. PIC crews are made up of sapiens from a variety of contacted civilizations. Void crust is a fungus-like, vacuum-hardened life form that can be found growing on asteroids across a variety of systems. Okay, so this stuff is actually alive. Good to know. Void crust makes up a significant portion of the diet of space worms, and is therefore of interest to the PIC, who cannot establish new portals without the worms. So this is Dune meets The Office, kinda? Kinda sounds like that if you... No, wait. No, the worms aren't... the worms in Dune aren't necessary for space travel. But they are involved in it to some extent, because they create the spice melange that then allows people to travel through space. I'm not sure. It actually kind of functions as such. Dune meets The Office. Though admittedly there's a lot more of The Office in this premise. Anyway, moving ahead, my world based on Finnish mythology and cosmology. The world is a flat disk, 1,000 kilometers in diameter. And yeah, it seems to center around Finland. The sky is a dome above it, and the sun and the moon very close by. So this is Scandinavian Discworld, more or less. Or sorry, Finnish Discworld. Dwarven captain, halfling noble, human soldier, orc hunter, and elven merchant. Oh, orc hunter. So this guy isn't hunting orcs. He's an orc who is a hunter, or at least I assume it's a guy because the presentation matches. Let's look at the description. Oh yeah, this is the world of my setting named Kaleva, Land of Heroes. It is a world heavily inspired by Finnish mythology and Kalevala, the national epic of Finland. The world is a flat circle with a diameter of about 1,000 kilometers. Yeah, we already covered that. The sky is a dome above it, and in the center is the world pillar which holds the sky. Moving ahead, the world is really young, about 200 years old. There exists a few creatures that were born before the world was born. Not exactly how that works. When there was only nothing. Did these creatures create the world? That'd be interesting. These creatures are either gods, spirits, some of which took a physical form and became the elves. Okay, really Tolkien-esque in that sense. The elves mm, being the creatures that are most directly associated with the divine without being divine themselves. Though in this case, though in this case they might directly be the divine depending on how spirits are classified in this world. Or the huge emu, which are the first of every animal species. Pantheon of this world consists of Finnish gods, like Supreme God Ukko, Tapio God of Forests, and Ati God of Waters. There, there are, uh, or should it not? There also are. Yeah, being pedantic for no reason. Moving ahead. A lot of demigods, like Väinämöinen or Ilmarinen, the original heroes who helped to create the world and played a huge part during the events of Kalevala, which is canon in the setting. Okay, I don't know if I've spoken these, if I pronounced these names correctly. I hope I did. But then again, if they helped create the world, and they are demigods, that assumes that means that there is a medium. There has been a medium that allowed for life to exist before that. So it's somewhat interesting to think about how exactly that works. The culture and places are inspired by not only Finnish mythology, but Finnish culture, customs, traditions, and even some memes. Because, of course. For example, Sauna Klonku is a traditional sauna game, and it even has a world championship that happens every 3 years. Okay, I know there has been a World Sauna Championship that has been discontinued because people have actually uh, died during it, but the idea of there being a game specifically played in saunas for which there is a World Championship, okay, that's new. I'll say that much. Anyway, moving ahead, a few pages from my world building passion project turned actual webcomic. Okay. About post-apocalyptic superheroes protecting survivors and trying to get them back to designated haven cities while avoiding the monsters in the wilderness. Okay, yeah, sounds interesting. Not gonna lie. 500 plus long family tree. I assume there are 500 different names. Married, children, lover. That's how it's classified. The fall of House Velneris. The Velneris kings had a well-intentioned but reckless policy. Any person with Dragon Rider blood was welcomed at court. Is this another Targaryen ripoff? Kind of sounds like it. Given dragon riding and the connection to dragons being tied into court. There is, some could argue that this that it'll that some could argue that that this could potentially be the spin-off of something else that the Rebecca Yarros books, whose names currently escape me. But anyway, moving back to this text right here. Over generations, many bastards were legitimized because they could prove their dragon bonding. And there's been a cycle of civil wars because, yeah, of course that happens. Succession is always messy, and people talk about people talk about medieval courts, and in particular there are royalists who admire the idea, the splendor behind medieval courts, or even the idea of feudalism as being more, as being potentially more based in meritocracy, and therefore being never being more stable, more logical as a form of governance. But in reality, you get cycles of civil wars, and in fact, you get them like one could almost argue that you get continuous wars, one after the other, and um, and many of them are either started by succession crises or beget succession crises, and just go on and on and on. It's a huge mess. Though admittedly, monarchists might consider that to be more orderly than financial crises. I don't know. Anyway, as I was saying, cycle of civil wars. This practice led to repeated challenges. Bastards of other branches would raise dragons and attempt to seize the crown. Sometimes they succeeded, only for the main line to reconquer power. These on and off succession crises disrupted the entire realm. I assume that's what it says because this slider thing is in the way. Consequences. Wars against rival Valneris claimants devastated the dragon population. Yeah, of course they would. By the end, dragons were nearly extinct, permanently weakening the dynasty. Okay, that is exactly like the freaking Targaryens. Final revolt. House Raven led a revolt. Delzin Raven, one of the lead generals, made a secret pact with an unknown deity. He gained immense magical power. His hair turned white and his eyes blue, traits that became Raven hallmarks. Using this power, Delsin destroyed the last Valneris dragons and conquered Paradise. Okay, interesting spelling decision. House Valneris was overthrown and almost eradicated. Almost. I assume the story itself is about a last survivor or descendant of House Valneris who is trying to reclaim the throne. That would not surprise me. So this would be Game of Thrones if Daenerys was the sole main character. Summary. Also, you misspelled summary, but whatever. House Valneris was a dynasty of dragon-bonded monarchs whose rule blended wonder and ruin. Of course. They embodied the heights of ambition and the dangers of generosity taken too far. Revered for their magical legacy and reviled for the chaos their bloodlines unleashed, they became a legend as much as a warning. In the end, it was not their enemies, but their own open-handed hubris that ensured their downfall. Okay, and these are the... this is the current year. Holy shit, that's still a lot of names. The honorary. Let's see, lineage and traditions. All Raven descendants inherit white or silver hair, sky blue eyes, though the blue can change depending on other parentage. Exceptional magical power, seen as evidence of their godly heritage. I can't help but wonder what exactly that magical power entails. Is it like an ability to augment themselves, or do they have stuff like, I don't know, fireballs, water manipulation? Anyway, they came to believe themselves divine or semi-divine above all other houses. Over generations, they practiced strict incest. Not a good idea. Believing intermarriage was the only way to keep their sacred blood pure. This began when Delsin's descendant, Daemon Raven, the second king, declared only ravens should ever possess raven blood. Daemon married his niece, Ew, after orchestrating the murder of her parents to isolate her. Yeah, not surprised. He also married a noblewoman, having children with both. From then on, sibling marriages became the norm. Again, I assume because there's a slider in the way. Despite generations of inbreeding, they suffered no visible deformities. Unbelievable, but go on. Some claim this was due to divine protection. Well, potentially. You don't necessarily have to go, full realistic. You could have, perfect carbon copies of various people in each generation. The last Raven King, so there was the last one, was Darian Raven, father of Desna and Damaris Raven, both daughters. So let me guess, because they were both daughters, they couldn't inherit. And bastard son Dorian, whose mother was a distant Valneris descendant. Dorian murdered Darian, ending Raven rule. Hours after the murder, he was anointed king by the High Luminary. Members of the faith saw this as divine justice. Okay, going ahead. House Raven was a dynasty of silver-haired kings who claimed their blood was blessed by the gods themselves. Revered and reviled in equal measure, they bound their lineage through generations of incest to keep their power pure and unbroken. They ruled with a conviction that no throne, no law, and no faith could stand above them. Yeah, no surprise they had opponents, so to speak. In their halls of splendor and secrecy, they became both legend and warning. A family who would rather be gods than merely rulers. The honorary. Oh, it's a comic. Okay, good to know. Maybe check out Mad Lad Comics. Okay. Another game. Do you have enormous creatures in your world? Asks character damage 640. No, I don't. Or rather, it depends. Because I do have, I do mention dragons in the story, but they are also said to be extinct. Though there are also plans to bring them back. Okay, then we have user Nicole, who has the constitution for the Imperial Commonwealth of Voltashire. Okay. Then there's user I'm a Poetic, the galaxy in 3025, the Rexian Dentinian Wars. There's the Uncharted, Black Space, and the Hollows. Or is this supposed to be the Uncharted Black Space on one side and the Hollows on the other? And then we have here the areas of the galaxy. There's some Midlands. There's Dead Space here. Dead Space is in the franchise. So does this actually take place canonically within the within Dead Space continuity? That'd be a little funny. The Silent 7, I think. There's Midlands. There are unorganized regions, and then there's the Wild West. You have Wild West and unorganized regions? Really? Okay. And this is a somewhat nicer map. Okay, I say nicer, but whatever. Would dragons be able to prevent the rise of the airliner? Will the mechanists, with the the real hard-hitting questions here? Let's see. Basically, in my modern/fantasy world, I'm trying to prevent the rise of the airliner, specifically the jetliner, and keep the ocean liner as the major means of transoceanic travel. Well, the main reason why airliners or jetliners really became a thing was because people wanted to travel more quickly across across oceans more quickly than ships would allow. So if you have a means to facilitate a journey that is equally quick, then then it is likely airliners wouldn't develop. So if your dragons are can fly at like 1,000 kilometers an hour, then or close enough to it, then you're on the right track. My current idea is that the sounds jet engines create drive dragons into a bloodlust frenzy, which causes the dragon to rip the plane to pieces. Now, why would a dragon hear a plane? That's a different question. Do they just exist everywhere and therefore whenever they and therefore would be incapable of not hearing it? So, if you really want to create, so if you really want to get some kind of juxtaposition between between airliners and dragons, you really need to specify how exactly that works. Also, is it specifically for jet engine planes? If it's specifically jet engine planes that they're after, well then you can't have any kind of jet engine travel, even even if it is entirely above land. Something to consider. And and also, do they react that way to other things? Let's see. Piston aircraft would still attract the attention of dragons, but due to not making the same sounds, they don't get attacked anywhere near as often. Oh, but they still get attacked. And again, this assumes that dragons are maybe not ubiquitous, but still frequent enough to where interactions between them and aircraft is still something to be considered, or something that people need to take into account before they get into such a craft. So yeah, I really suggest Will the Mechanist give this some thought. Consider how consider how dragons interact with maybe machinery in general, because the sounds of jets and the sounds of piston engines aren't really too dissimilar to other industrial sounds, if you really think about it. Would the public reaction to the planes being ripped out of the sky by dragons be enough to effectively kill the airliner? Well, if you already have dragons that could kill the you already have dragons that could make this trip, or even if they're wild, that's doable. And to effectively cure the airliner, keep the ocean liner as the king of transoceanic travel, you wouldn't, because zeppelins, they would still exist. Like they might be a little fancier. However, nothing about what it is that you've currently said really makes zeppelins unlikely. So you really have to. So if your explanation is that we can't have transoceanic travel because of, or airborne transoceanic travel because of dragons, then you really have to explain what it is, what it would be about, what would make zeppelins, not not rise to an over to take over that niche. Edit. If anybody has a better idea on how to keep the airliner from becoming the dominant form of transoceanic travel and keep the ocean liner as king, please do suggest. Well, I already made the. Well, the thing that killed the Zeppelin in our world was the Hindenburg disaster. So if that, so if that doesn't happen, or if that is, so if that is for polished, then it is quite likely that uh, that airliners no longer exist. However, the ocean liner could be, could be deposed from that, could be deposed from that position. Anyway, still something to note. Consider the broader interaction with the, consider the broader interaction between dragons and the sounds of industry or sounds of machinery before you really proceed any further. I'm not sure why I'm telling this to Will the Mechanist now, because this video is gonna come out like something like it's gonna come out like at least 2 months after I'm filming it. So, but still, it is interesting enough to give my thoughts. Let's end this video with Disastrous Dare 9570, who is a fear of presenting my world. Okay, what are you actually afraid of, Disastrous Dare? Literally that. I'm so eager to present my world on this sub, but so afraid of being judged. Yeah, happens. My suggestion: grit your teeth and just dive right in. Like, grab the bull by the horns. That's the best way to, that's the best way to move ahead in this case. I use it in my RPG tables. Thank any and all gods it's not D&D. So I have more creative freedom than I feel D&D took away from me. Why am I afraid? Because my world has elves, dwarves, giants, and yet it's not a world inspired by medieval Europe or anything else. What are you basing it on? It's a simply magical world. I think you mean it's simply a magical world, as a good friend of mine describes it. Oh, okay, so it's a simply magical world. The world is just like that, as a good friend of mine describes it. So, but if it's not, however, if it's not inspired by anything in particular, what does it actually look like? Now, okay, now you make me curious. I take a little bit of each culture without copying and pasting. Then how exactly do you take and create a magical world with a powerful philosophical foundation? I have some thoughts on that more later, with strong inclinations towards areas of human sciences that interest me. Okay, so the world itself doesn't have that, but rather you have it in terms of making it. My question to that is, because humans are, as has been said, predictably unpredictable, why would they agree to why would they agree to any to any direction you give them? What makes you think that uh, that the path you lay out for them is the most plausible path that this world would take, or that the figures of influence within that world would consider the path you draw out to be the one that makes the most sense. Something to consider. Such as psychology, history of religion, sociology, and also other fields of study, esotericism, occultism, ethics, and morals. It's a world I love, but I feel like I'd be judged if I were to introduce it here. Well, you will be. Well, to some extent, everything you do is based on judgment. Yet you seem to be fine with your friends judging it, or rather evaluating it, calling it simply magical and stuff like that. So not all judgment is negative. Just saying. There could be some, there could be some, there could be some interesting strong points that that result from it. Let's see. I feel a little intimidated. I like my elves, and I especially like my dwarves and giants. Well then, in creating the world, I didn't seek to be different from others, and yet you sought to, and yet you tried to, and you were inspired by a lot of different things, or rather, you took a little bit from each culture. Da, 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 da. But to create a world with everything I would like to see in a fantasy world, added to all the crazy things that go on in my mind involving human behavior, I assume, throughout history. It's a world I love and would love to share. Go ahead, but I feel intimidated. I've worked hard to make it unique, but you said you didn't want it to be different from others. Oh, oh, do you think did you mean distinctive or recognizable? I can see the merits in that. To make it mine, but I feel like they judge me too much. Have you ever felt something similar? Every creative ever feels, has that same fear. What if they don't like it? But I want them to like it. It's important. It's important that they like it. I want to be able to make money off of this thing. I want to, you get it. Professional authors in particular, but still they have, but still, uh, books get published, works get done. So yeah, I understand your apprehension, but it is something that is quite common. There is nothing to there is nothing to scare you about introducing it. Still, if you just flat out don't want to, you can just decide not to. No one's gonna judge you one way or another. Uh, how do you deal with it? You you let it happen. Like I said, bite the bullet. Jump right, jump right in. Whatever happens, happens. I see the creators here with their talking insects and thousand-eyed alien elves that reproduce through psychic waves in Hebrew. Wait, what the fuck? Okay. And here we go. And yeah, there are some comments, including one by Loose Screw 37. Realistically, the worst that can happen is that you will get ignored. So share the world and see what happens. The worst she can say is no. Moment. Okay, your world sounds really cool and you're not going to get judged. World building in and of itself is a step that most people never take, so the very fact that you made your own world is kind of commendable. Well, it is for an RPG, so you kind of have to make the world. You kind of have to make the the rules uh, and the game elements, which is very much world building within gaming. So yeah, that is so while commendable, it is also necessary if you really think about it. We don't judge here; we just info dump and read other people's info dumps. And then there's a sun here. Just remind yourself that you created your world for you and not for others. Okay, that's actually pretty good. Blur Fanu, I assume. Get round in the season. Responds with, I think your passion will shine through at the very least, and I am interested in learning about your world. Learning anything about your world you're willing to share that you find interesting. Okay, good to know. And I think I've been filming this for long enough. Okay, hey, WhatsApp notification, get away. Can't really see for how long I've been filming, nor can I actually stop this recording. Oh wait, I can just close the notification. I am so dumb. Anyway, that was it for today's video. I very much hope you enjoyed it, even though it's not my typical fare. If you did, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the topic of world building or to any of the particular world building suggestions that you've seen, that you've seen today, well, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe, and ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. My books, the first of my own Heir to the Empire series, The Next Generation and the Path Not Taken, with the third one, the whose title ironically escapes me right now, The Unfolding Order. Thank you, thank you, brain, for remembering that. With a third one, The Unfolding Order, on the way. I might even have a publication date by the time this video comes out, maybe. Anyway, but until then, I have these two books out, and the links to where you can where you can find them are are in the description down below, right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out, should you choose to. I also have a second channel where you can see and hear me talk about whatever crosses my mind, though it'll typically be related to narrative analyses, but of works outside of the print medium. So I'll be talking a lot about TV shows, movies, potentially games as well. So if that sounds interesting to you, then I suggest you go ahead and check that out. If you would rather hear my thoughts on the print medium, well then I suggest you stay on this channel and go through my extensive backlog of book reviews, writing advice, and miscellaneous connected topics, such as world building, for example. And because who knows, maybe you'll find something to your liking over there as well. If that doesn't interest you either, then I suggest you go ahead and do whatever you want the rest of your day, because it is your day after all. And yeah, that was it for me. So until next time, I am Jonathan Taylor, and this has been the Heir's Lair.